Rolling, pulling, cranking, scouting, summoning, scamming, whatever you call it, it's the same thing. The most addictive money-sucking method used by Japanese app developers to get players of free-to-play games to spend more than they would on the complete edition of the PC Master Race's crown jewel, Train Simulator. So what's a cheap blaster like me to do when looking for a free game to play? Well, we need to consider, what about a game makes it fun to you? Is it the characters, the music, the writing, the graphics? David Cage smiles as I leave out one important aspect for last, as that's my personal fun factor. The gameplay. To me, if the gameplay of a video game isn't fun, I'd rather experience the IP in another medium if possible. I have no interest in watching the anime Bayonetta movie when I could be finishing the games instead. But after the 1000th floor of tartar sauce, I'll admit I was tempted to just watch the final Persona 3 movie. At its core, the reason for why I'm creating this video is so I could explain why I've quit playing what was once a mainstay on my channel, the mobile game Puni Puni by NHN PlayArt. But the issues with this game are so nuanced, and so are my thoughts, that I've been speaking about my issues with the game's root design as far back as 2 to 3 years ago, that doing so requires taking a larger look at things. Even if you don't care specifically about this random game you've never heard of, there's still a lot for you in this video. This video isn't the type of content I usually create on my channel, but it's the type of content I've been wanting to create for an extremely long time. So like anything that I actually enjoy making, I look forward to never looking at this video's view count out of shame. This is a case study of Yo-kai Watch Puni Puni. Today we will discuss what makes a good gacha game, and what makes an absolute dumpster fire disgusting piece of trash. Oh my god, NHN, how did you mess this up so bad? If you're interested in more videos like this, please leave a like and comment below letting me know your favorite and least favorite things about this video, because I'll be reading all of them. If you're new here, I try to live stream 6 days a week, and I'm a huge fan of Yo-kai Watch. I'm the only English-speaking YouTuber out there that'll be doing a full live stream Let's Play of Yo-kai Watch 4 that also can read Japanese, so make sure to tune in if you want to actually know what's going on and how to make teams that aren't total trash. I'll be translating as much of the game for you that I can. If I notice people subscribing because of this video, you can bet there'll be more like it. Yo-kai Watch Puni Puni, which I'll just be calling Puni from now on, is based on another game by NHN PlayArt called Disney's Tsum Tsum. Tsum Tsum is a simplistic arcade-style game. In fact, it even has an arcade machine version that I've been fortunate enough to play. Tsum Tsum is super fun. You link up random dudes that drop from above onto your board to charge up the skill meter of the main character you choose before the round begins. Each character has a different skill, so you can experiment and find which works best for your playstyle. The Disney characters are of course the main creative attraction, but don't worry if your favorite has a bad skill. All the other guys dropping from above are chosen randomly from your collection each round, so you always get to play with everyone, even if they aren't useful. This is pretty important. Unlike other collection-focused games, no matter how bad your favorites are, you'll always get a chance to see them in action because they don't actually impact your performance. It's all aesthetic. The more you play, the more money you earn to crank the gacha. I'm assuming everyone watching this knows what a gacha is, so I won't waste time explaining it much, but for those who don't, it's basically a Japanese loot box without the day one on disc DLC that's somehow acceptable these days because, oh, you get it all for free if you only play 500 hours a month, and cosmetics totally aren't real game content like they used to be 10 years ago. As you pull duplicate characters, their skills get stronger. As a simple arcade-style game, it's a perfect fit for mobile. Whip out Tsum Tsum whatever you want for a quick minute of score attack fun. Link up with the Japanese social network Line to compete for the highest scores among your friends, and get your bite-sized Disney fill with the newest limited time characters. They even did Halloween Town Sora, Donald, and Goofy one year for Halloween. The highest you score each round, the more coins you get to spend on gacha pulls, or you can just buy coins with real money to make sure you get Jedi Luke before he slips away forever. Seriously, they never brought him back because of how overpowered he was. If the game sounds shallow, that's because it is. I don't play it anymore because I prefer meatier games, but for the Disney audience, I'd say it's perfect the way it is now. But that's because the Disney audience isn't a video game audience. When they were offered the opportunity to use Level 5's Yo-kai Watch license, NHN decided to take the concept of Tsum Tsum and try to make it into something meatier for fans of Yo-kai Watch, a massive cross-media franchise spanning anime, toys, movies, and of course, video games, the forte of the creators of Dragon Quest VIII, Dark Cloud, Professor Layton, and more. This isn't the topic of the video, but before the uneducated leap to the comment section to talk about how Yo-kai Watch is apparently dead, the last retail release sold over 500,000 units, and its apps are among the top grossing in the Japanese App Store. But as we all know, when it comes to debating, personal agendas always win over facts. But just because Puni Puni is high grossing doesn't mean I have to think it's a good game, especially when NHN's greed was a major factor in Puni Puni's downfall. But we'll get to that later. Puni has you constructing a team of 5 yokai characters to take on stages. Just like Tsum Tsum, linking small yokai that randomly fall onto your board makes big ones, but now popping them does 2 new things. 1, it deals damage to enemies, and 2, it fills the skill meter of that specific yokai. That's right, all 5 characters on the board can use their skill this time, and you also get to choose every one you take. The base simplistic gameplay of Tsum Tsum remains largely the same. Surely this was a fantastic design choice. Right? Yokai have exactly 4 things that make them different. Their tribe, their HP and attack stats, and their special skill called the Ultimate Move. Yokai get plus 10% HP and attack for other yokai of the same tribe on your team up to 3 yokai, then plus 5% for each one after that, for a possible maximum of plus 30% stat bonus for a full team of 5 yokai of the same tribe. While playing in a stage, enemies will attack you to deal damage every 5 seconds. The total HP of all your yokai is your HP as a player, and once that drops to 0, you lose. Of course, you can almost always pay for a full HP revival. When Yo-kai Puni are popped, they deal damage based off of their attack stat, with a multiplier based on the Puni's size. Finally, there's the Yokai's ultimate move. In order to use this ultimate, you tap a yokai when their meter is filled. Let's take a look at some of the most powerful ultimate move types in Puni Puni at the moment. The Extreme Popper. Once activated, you can't do anything as an animation plays, automatically popping all Puni that enter the field for the next few seconds. The damage they deal being individually popped by you is totaled, then a massive multiplier is applied to it. Finally, an extra piece of damage calculated from a multiplier applied to the yokai using the ultimate move's attack stat is added, and the total damage is dealt to a single target, the Horizontal Popper. A horizontal line of Puni is popped across the middle of the screen. The damage they deal being individually popped by you is totaled, then a massive multiplier is applied to it. Finally, an extra piece of damage calculated from a multiplier applied to the yokai using the ultimate move's attack stat is added, and the total damage is dealt to a single target. This sounds super bad compared to the Extreme Popper, but in reality, it's completely on par. The multipliers used here are insane compared to the Extreme Poppers, so less Puni with a bigger multiplier versus more Puni with a smaller multiplier all evens out in the end. By the way, see these cutscenes that play every time you use this ultimate move? Yeah, you can't skip them. Ever. The Vertical Popper. Exact same thing as the Horizontal Popper, except popping a vertical column. The All Popper. All Puni on the board are immediately popped. You know the drill by now. Damage tally, multiplier, add to a multiplier applied to the user's attack stat, and deal the result to a single target. Again, the multiplier used in the first part is weighted against the total Puni popped. The Tracer. For the next 5 seconds, you trace your finger along the screen to move a hitbox that continuously pops all Puni it touches. Maybe it's a circle, maybe it's a sword slash, or maybe it's literally a Beyblade. Yeah, Puni's collabs got weird. Anyway, the damage of all Punis you popped individually is tallied, multiplied, then added to a multiplier applied to the user's attack stat as usual. The damage is then dealt to a single target. Laser shooters, bomb makers, evil dog that pisses on the board. With its huge variety and ultimate moves available and flashy animations, how could this game not be a treat for any yokai fan? And it is! Every 2 weeks there's a new event with new yokai, or sometimes Hello Kitty, or sometimes
Evan Petty Whisker Children.
And it's that constant engagement with the Yo-kai Watch IP that kept me and many others coming back. But what made me quit was the gameplay. Yeah, those ultimates I showed were awesome, unleashing the vengeful spirits of imprisoned evildoers, Demon Meliodas's rage, Penguin Soccer, Big Ball of Dark Fire. They're so awesome! But if you were paying attention, or even if you weren't, since I tried super hard to spell it out pretty clearly, you noticed the biggest issue of Puni Puni. Every ultimate move boils down to the exact same thing. They can skin it however they want, but every ultimate ends up being a vending machine. Push button, receive damage. People unfamiliar with the game might think that the different area of effect shapes offer the opportunity for strategy, or the fact that tracers let you trace wherever you want on the board. But since all the Puni spawns are completely random, what ends up happening is the randomness completely negates any possibility for strategy. In fact, the best strategy for tracers is closing your eyes and spinning your finger in a circle. Tribe, HP, attack, and ultimate move. These are the only things that separate yokai. Tribe's only purpose is to feed stat bonuses, and HP doesn't even matter much. The moment a new yokai is revealed, no one cares about how cool its ultimate is or wacky new ways to pop yokai it might have invented. All they care about is how much damage it deals in the end. Sure, Takao Kinomiya shoots a Beyblade, but does it deal more damage than Jenny from Chibi Robo? More like let it rip. NHN later introduced passive skills as an attempt to differentiate yokai, but all most of them do in the end is provide more passive damage bonuses that offer no additional strategy than racking your brain to try and decide if 12 is bigger than 10. Where's Professor Layton when you need him? Tsum Tsum's gameplay system was perfect for a simplistic arcade-style game, but the moment they decided to make it into something more, NHN needed to perform some major changes from the ground up that they just didn't. Puni Puni is far too shallow to be exciting, Not because shallow can't be exciting, but because the limitations of Puni Puni's gameplay systems prevent anything exciting from happening. Every single ultimate that deals damage will ultimately be judged based on the final damage it deals at the end of the move, because there's no opportunity to involve a deeper level of skill. Take, for example, an action RPG. Sword A deals 10 damage per strike and has a half-second long attack animation. Sword B deals 20 damage per strike and has a 1-second long attack animation. On paper, they're exactly the same strength, but in practice, they're completely different experiences. When played optimally, they'll do the exact same thing, but since playing each sword optimally is a massive undertaking in itself, players will end up swearing by their favorites, with performance varying wildly between the two weapons. Where Puni suffers is that paper is practice. There is so little gameplay change between characters that I've gone weeks spending more time in literal spreadsheets than actually playing the game, crunching the numbers on the best way to grind in-game currency. Did someone say convenient segue? We've established the issues behind Puni Puni's game design, but it's how those issues feed into the other aspects of the game that's the main issue. Instead of the traditional 5-star or super secret rare classifications of most gacha games, Puni uses the established classification system already existing in Yo-kai Watch. Ranks. Yokai are classified from E through A rank, with the most powerful yokai being S rank. Ranks are a part of a yokai's design, so unless their rank changes between games, there's no upgrading or downgrading excluding mechanics in a couple newer games. Puni is not one of them. This leads us to the second major issue with Puni's design. Units have zero value outside of their immediate function. There is no customizing yokai, there is no talking to yokai. Outside of leveling up through EXP from battling, there is no upgrading yokai. You can't even sacrifice lower rank yokai you don't want to level up the ones you're using, which is a staple in other gacha games. The only benefit unwanted yokai serve is filling out your collection. Lots of gacha games have various dialogue options or unlockable cutscenes for every unit in the game, so even if a unit is completely useless, you might have a few heartwarming minutes of character exposition to be unlocked every 10 levels for them. Yokai can be randomly befriended when defeated in battle, but that's only for certain yokai they don't want exclusive to the gacha. Every event offers 45 new stages to play, with brand new yokai scattered throughout the map. Sounds like good fun, right? Of course it isn't. There's literally zero reason to collect the new yokai outside of a base addictive desire to collect, and the only difference between each stage besides the aesthetic of a different yokai on the top of the screen is a different attack and HP number for each of them. Yokai have one single line of dialogue when befriended for the first time, and befriending them unlocks a simplistic 1 or 2 sentence description in your collection. That's it. Every yokai comes with exactly one extremely short soundbite that plays every single time you pop their Puni or use their ultimate move, which is hundreds of times per stage, no exaggeration. Ever wanted to hear a constipated ogre try and deal with last night's dinner? I sure hope so, because he gets you 50% more money during this event, after which he'll never be useful again because he's awful! Almost none of the yokai you befriend are going to be S rank, so they immediately get thrown in the trash due to Puni's shallow design. The weekly online score attack competition, where players compete to get the highest score for in-game currency prizes, is as cutthroat as you'd expect. So with Puni's gameplay boiling down to pure math, it all comes down to who gets the best yokai. Don't get me wrong, there is absolutely skill involved in performing a perfect score attack run. That's what separates the people who have the same perfect yokai. However, excluding the rare exploit or a player that's completely brain dead, which is more common than you think, anyone who doesn't have the best yokai won't be scoring above someone who does. Because of this, once you obtain a yokai, there's a 99% chance you won't even use it once just to take it for a test drive. It's impossible to overstate just how pointless and literally unusable so many new yokai are. Who's gonna care about playing an event for 50 hours to get the newest yokai when a yokai that does the exact same thing but with 2% more strength is gonna release immediately after in the next event? You can befriend or crank a single yokai up to 35 times, but each duplicate feeds into the original to power up their ultimate up to level 7. All this does is result in a grind for soul secrets, items that substitute for duplicate yokai to level up ultimates easier. Like the human race, Puni's gacha can be separated into 2 distinct periods. Before Y points and after Y points. If you're unfamiliar with Puni, you're probably thinking the fun in this segment doesn't start until after Y points were introduced. Well, good news, NHN messed up almost immediately. So, here's how currency worked at first. You earned currency at the end of each stage. The amount of currency, called Y money, that you earned was a function of your score with exponentially decaying rates of return. That is to say, your first million score might earn you 300 Y money, but earning 2 million score might earn you a total of 500 Y money instead of 600. The amount of score you get during a stage is directly tied to how much damage you deal, so you might think each stage has a hard score cap tied to the total HP of the enemies on it. But that's because I haven't talked about a crucial mechanic of Puni and its predecessor Tsum Tsum. NHN's total lack of intelligence. Oh, and fever time. As you play, the fever mode gauge fills. Once it fills up, time freezes for 10 seconds. During Fever Time, any damage you deal, including ultimate damage, is pooled up and dealt all at once at the end of Fever Time. Naturally, players immediately began abusing yokai with power boosting ultimates, yokai with score boosting ultimates, and the strongest damage dealers in the game to squeeze as much score as they could out of every single run. That way, they'd be making the most efficient Y money per minute possible. If you've played pretty much any mobile game ever, all this probably stands out to you. Puni is designed to allow players to grind unlimited currency on their own time. There is technically a stamina system, but you can buy stamina for a trivial amount of currency, so it basically doesn't exist here. Where Puni slips up is the lack of separation between the free currency and the premium currency. Where most mobile games have coins and gems, Puni just has Y money. This results in some seriously awkward balancing issues. Completely raising your yokai's level to 50 requires a total of 3 cranks worth of cash. Imagine if Fire Emblem Heroes made you pay 15 orbs in order to raise your hero's level past 10. That'd be insane because of how valuable orbs are. You can't grind them at all, so you need to spend them super wisely. By making unlimited amounts of currency available to dedicated players, Puni completely devalues its sole microtransaction, Y money. Do economics classes not exist in Japan or something? Players immediately figured out a way to grind an average of 3,000 Y money, or 1 pull, every 10 minutes, and since the only way for Puni to create excitement for its characters is through power creep, this quickly shifted to 3,000 Y money every 5 minutes, and then every 3 minutes within a matter of 8 months. But as players, why should we care about that stuff? Why is Puni being the definitively most free-to-play friendly gacha game on the entire market a bad thing? In truth, it wasn't. It was why I and so many others loved and preferred it to every other app. Where other gacha games might require hundreds of dollars to perform a satisfying batch of pulls, Puni just required a bit of elbow grease, and that made all the difference to its young target audience who valued their weekly $5 allowance more than NHN valued us as players. So consider this, with individual cranks becoming easier and easier to come by, what was NHN to do to incentivize buying money over grinding it? Well, outright lowering the gacha rates would create some explosive responses from the community. With an insanely generous 8% pull rate for the ultimate S-rank yokai rarity, this was yet another aspect that made Puni above and beyond the best choice for free-to-play players. So they did something crazy that has never happened before in the Yo-Kai Watch series. They introduced a new rank. At only 2% pull rate, the SS rank Awoken yokai were lazily copy and pasted versions of the most popular fan favorites in Hydabat with lazy aura effects slapped onto them. Some of the initial batch of SS rank yokai were hilariously awful, but others were indisputably better in every way. Would you rather boost your attack power by 90%? Or double it and heal 250 HP at the same time? As if this wasn't bad enough, these yokai were each introduced once per week for a brand new type of score attack, the competitive mode I mentioned earlier. 2 things were new to this revamped score attack. 1, there's an extra prize for high-performing players. Instead of just 9,000 Y money and a few soul secrets for the best of the best, the top 2% or so of players would get a brand new yokai. That's right, instead of fighting random yokai during score attack, each week now featured a brand new big boss yokai from the Buster's spin-off title. These yokai were purely bosses in the original, so being able to actually befriend and use them on your team in Puni was kind of a huge deal for longtime fans. The thing is, no one actually knew what they did until ranking rewards were distributed after the end of the week-long score attack period and the bosses got into players' hands. Players just knew that new yokai were up for grabs. This would add a fun element of mystery and surprise, but remember those brand new SS rank yokai being introduced each week? Yeah, that's no coincidence. No matter how bad the actual yokai were, you were basically forced to crank for them, because anyone who had that week's SS rank on their team got a 250% score bonus. So even if that week's SS rank Awoken yokai in the gacha was god-awful, and believe me, some of them were, if you didn't crank them and get the new big boss, you'd be screwed if the boss in question ended up being good. There were 8 Awoken yokai and big bosses in total on a weekly rotation, which meant you only got 1 chance every 2 months to get them. By the way, the Awoken yokai weren't the only new SS ranks in town. All the new big bosses were SS ranks too. So, were they good? God no! A grand total of 2 out of 8 of them were actually worth using, with another 2 having extremely fringe, very occasional uses. The other 4 were among the worst yokai ultimate types in the game, though their record-breaking stats helped save them from total irrelevancy. Just kidding. Like I said, Puni's all math, so if your yokai were good enough to get these guys, they were good enough to make you go, oh, cool. When you actually got the boss in question. In the end, this ended up capitalizing on a major fear of missing out from players. NHN did this to try and make money without actually introducing any yokai that were good enough to further disrupt the game's economy. Well, kind of. Blazion Awoken and Prison Breaker were the two most overpowered yokai in the game at that point, with their mathematically superior attack boost to anyone else in the game. At this point in the game, players could grind around one crank every 6 to 8 minutes, depending on how lucky they were. The 1 per 3 minutes rate I mentioned earlier comes later. Why? Because now that the floodgates to a rank with 1/4 the pull rate were open, NHN was never, ever going back. Every future yokai with event abilities was either S rank or SS rank, with the only ones worth using being SS rank, because of course they would be. Did you invest hundreds of dollars a few months ago into pulling the new S rank yokai that pops 16 Puni at random? Well, now the new SS rank random popper pops 18 Puni at random, with the exact same damage multiplier and 100 extra base attack to boot. This might seem bad on its own, but then Yo-kai Watch 3 came along. Remember how I mentioned befriending yokai at the end of a stage was random? Well, none of those random befriending rates were available in-game, and NHN didn't have to make them because Japanese law only dictates that developers state the rates of things directly available in the gacha. Well, 8 months into Puni's lifetime, NHN took a look at how they'd already cut the pull rate of the best yokai by 75% and said, hey, let's do that again, but also not legally. This time, they did something a little different. Instead of putting the new American Legend yokai directly into the gacha, they put passes in the gacha in a separate tier at the regular 2% pull rate for SS ranks. Passes were one-time use only and let you fight the American Legend they applied to when you used them. Once. You'd then have to kill the yokai and pray for a befriending in order to actually add them to your team. But here's the loophole. Since you're only cranking for the pass itself, NHN never had to disclose the befriend rate of the American Legend yokai themselves. You're cranking for the experience of fighting them, or something stupid like that. The befriending rate ended up being around 33%, which makes for an adjusted pull rate of 0.66% for these guys. And that's if their passes are the only thing in their tier. Don't forget that everything in its rarity tier has to share its tier's pull rate, so all the tiers total up to 100%. So if there were 3 passes in the gacha, and you can bet there were all the time, that means you actually had a 0.22% chance of pulling the American Legend yokai you wanted. Of course, the actual rarity of each rarity tier was a little bit flexible, but not as much as you'd hope. With an astronomically tiny pull rate and some of the coolest, flashiest designs in the game, what choice did NHN have but to make these things game-breakingly busted? The very first American Legend, the last Nyanmarai, had the exact tribe and Ultimate as D-Muncher, an S-rank recently introduced into the game as an exciting addition. The strongest direct attacker in the game. His Ultimate had the same attack multiplier too, which means literally the only difference between them was their attack stat itself. The last Nyanmarai's attack stat, after all bonuses and extra calculations took place, was almost exactly double that of D-Muncher's. Off to a great start, right? Whether it was introducing a game-breaking new Ultimate type that dominated the game for years, or literally just mashing 2 full-power Ultimate moves into one yokai, around half of the American Legends ended up breaking the game, while the other half were so bad it felt shameful to even consider using their passes if you pulled one.
Leafy, what's up?
Hey Rob, I'm about to do my Columbus pass. Wish me luck. Rob? Rob, I said wish me... You there? As if all this wasn't bad enough already, to compensate for the unavoidable power creep, NHN introduced a separation between the standard vanilla gacha with your everyday yokai, and a new event gacha that changed its contents completely every event. The event gacha would be the new and only place to get event yokai from now on, and this is notable because it costs 50% more than the vanilla gacha. 4,500 Y money rather than 3,000 Y money. Here's where my first real issue with NHN's greed arises. This change was introduced to compensate for NHN's inability to design around the power creep situation they created themselves. They needed to incentivize players to pay for Y money by increasing the cost of cranks by 50%, which meant that every crank took 50% more time to grind out. That on its own is fine. You gotta make money somehow or you can't develop the game, right? But here's the thing. NHN punished existing, loyal, paying players by not adjusting the amount of Y money you got for your real money. Previously, you got 35,000 Y money for $30, enough for 11 cranks. After the introduction of the event gacha, you now got... Oh, you still got 35,000 Y money for $30. See the issue here? NHN wanted to devalue Y money, but by doing so, they devalued premium Y money by failing to adjust how much you got to retain the previous cranks per dollar rate. That was a lot of words and math, so let me put it in a different way. This wasn't just scummy. It was stupid. Most players play gacha games because the actual act of cranking is what's fun and exciting. Getting something good at the end is the goal, but the activity, cranking itself, is the entertainment. By reducing the number of cranks players got for the dollars they were potentially spending, NHN massively devalued the game's sole source of revenue. This led to NHN seeking out other avenues to nickel and dime players through by overhauling existing event types to revolve around obnoxious systems that encourage small purchases. The fan-favorite Ohajiki battle event, where you fought increasingly difficult bosses in a special minigame mode with the ability to work together with your friends, had a stamina system shoved inside it that was so limiting it basically said, hey, wanna play Yo-kai Watch Puni Puni? I sure hope not! Thankfully, the final event type with microtransactions basically amounted to get good when players complained due to just being $1 HP refills, so the overlap between people committed enough to actually be upset about the changes and the people who had enough yokai to not be affected by them was less of a Venn diagram and more of a perfect circle if you ignore the literal children playing. Fast forward another 7 months and NHN introduces a new rank. There's already S and SS rank, so I don't know, slap another S on there and call it a day? The SSS rank was created to go alongside 3 event yokai, Solar, Time Space, and Darkness Deva Enma. In the source material, these are literal gods from another dimension, and since the only way to get them was by actually playing their events, the SSS rank was just a cool aesthetic addition to cement them as the best of the best. Everything about them was pretty fair. They were quite strong, but not overpowered because they were in their own unique Enma tribe, which meant no stat bonuses from other yokai. And since you had to play their events and beat them in battle to earn them, rather than being able to get them from the gacha, everyone was pretty excited about their additions. One event was held every 3-ish months beginning in January, and Puni hit a nice stride during this period. Everyone had accepted the reality of SS ranks at this point, and grinding Y money was very easy for any committed fan, yet NHN was somehow able to make enough money to still be in the top earning apps. The only real issue that started to crop up was the introduction of a few new event types with microtransactions in them to make getting the event yokai easier. I'd probably call this the golden age of Puni Puni. The launch of the game was very vanilla, like the pilot episode of a TV show. But the developers were really starting to figure out what was fun and cool and introduce some exciting, very new event types. Sure, some new microtransactions weren't preferable, but us free-to-play players were able to make peace with them, and good lord, what is that?! In November 2017, NHN ran out of SSS rank Enma to make events around, so they collaborated with Level 5 themselves to create a new set of yokai based around classic fan favorites that would eventually be implemented into Yo-kai Watch 4, the Extreme Yokai. In Yo-kai Watch, evil yokai are sent to infinite hell, which is exactly what it says on the box. The Extreme Yokai is a band of super evil yokai that did awful things like watch their little brother die and watch their best friend die. Apparently neglecting your duty to act is the highest offense in the yokai world, because these guys were sent to Yokai Alcatraz, the highest security prison that they can never, ever, okay. Rine breaks them out and says, hey, let's take over the world, so now they're here to do just that $1 at a time. This brand new set of SSS rank yokai began with Goku Orochi, who boasted a new Soultimate type we went over earlier, the Extreme Popper. Here is where NHN's greed really started to show itself. SS ranks were as rare as they needed to be and no more. The rank was comfortably high enough to give room for a wide range of yokai, but due to the fundamental flaws in Puni's design, the only way for NHN to build excitement was by making the exceptional SSS rank created solely to characterize god yokai as exceptional gods into the new norm. See how everything we've discussed so far is coming together? Thankfully, Goku Orochi was still only obtainable by defeating and befriending him in his boss fight like the Deva Enma. Just like those guys, pulling the super strong new SS rank yokai definitely gave you a huge boost thanks to their special event abilities, like cutting Goku Orochi's damage in half just by being on your team. But committed players could defeat him without any new yokai just by having a solid team, some luck, and quick fingers. But would all of his Goku friends be obtainable for free? We both know the answer to that, but before I make like Bethesda and reveal something everyone knows about already, we have a bigger issue on our hands. Goku Orochi was programmed incorrectly. To this day, I have zero idea how this happened, but the final hit of his Soultimate move was bugged to deal way more damage than it should have. Players figured this out within hours of his release and began exploiting it as much as possible. Where previously, the maximum amount of money you could make in a single stage was a few thousand Y money, the Goku Orochi bug allowed players to make over 30,000 Y money in less than 3 minutes. That's 10 cranks, or over $30. By the end of the day, it was hard to find anyone worth their salt without their money completely maxed out at 9,999,999. They did manage to release a patch in a little less than a week to fix a bug, but by then, the damage had already been done to Puni's economy. A big change was needed to save the game from eternal doom. Y Points. The next event introduced Y Points, a brand new currency used in the event shop and event gacha. Y Money was now only useful for unlocking yokai's level caps and cranking soul secrets from the vanilla gacha. It took 500 Y Points to crank the event gacha once, but a brand new feature was the ability to perform 10 cranks at once like a lot of other gacha games. And just like them, Puni gave you a 10% discount. If you bought 10 cranks at once, you only had to pay for 9. The arrival of Y Points also normalized the cranks per dollar rate down to $30-ish per 10 crank if you were buying the high value packs. However, where paying players won, free-to-play ones lost. It was now insanely hard to grind cranks due to Y Points only being grindable on event maps, which meant every 2 weeks when the event changed, NHN could completely change how you earned Y Points. And they did. Some event types would let you make a speedy 1,000 Y Points per hour, but you were lucky to get a few hundred a day during the stamina-based Ohajiki battle events, due to the hard limit on stamina recharging preventing you from playing without paying. As you can imagine, this pissed a lot of players off. The ability to earn 2 cranks per hour rather than 100 stung super hard, and the changes were so sudden and so drastic that a massive amount of players left and just stopped playing the game. To top it all off, the new event wasn't even all that fun. However, it introduced one of the most powerful attack buffing yokai in the game, Dandori. Puni Puni shot up the App Store's highest grossing charts to the very top, so there is a clear trade-off here. NHN was benefiting at the cost of the general player base's happiness. Thankfully, NHN's greed ended with the introduction of Y Points. Now that everything was balanced, the obligatory Christmas event following Y Points' debut could treat players to a second overhaul of the Ohajiki battle event system that made it even more money hungry. Merry Christmas, you gullible idiots! Enter the Super Boss. Every time the Ohajiki battle boss is defeated, it levels up to have more HP when it returns the next time you clear a stage. Every time you defeat the boss, you unlock new rewards, though now you have to buy them with Y Points. No matter how many times the boss levels up, you only have an hour to defeat it, so you'll need to rely on friends to help you chip away its health at later levels if you don't want to spend money on stamina. You can choose to expend your entire 50 stamina meter instead of the usual 10 stamina to bet it all on a run that multiplies your damage by 6, basically giving you a free 10 stamina. But even with this in mind, you've got 2 choices when you reach the boss's higher levels. Pay up for energy drinks to refill your stamina, or beg your friends to use their valuable stamina on your boss instead of theirs. The highest level you get a reward for is being the level 40 Ohajiki battle boss at a little over 30,000 HP within an hour, which could be quite the challenge depending on if you or your friends had pulled the special yokai for the event, which got massive damage bonuses against the boss. Fast forward to Christmas 2017. Enter the Super Boss. Wait, did I say that already? Every time you defeat the boss, there is a small chance the Super Boss will spawn immediately afterwards. Since the Super Boss has 7 levels, that means it's possible and even likely that you'll have to defeat the normal boss over level 40 just to try and get the Super Boss's final levels to spawn. And since it spawns immediately after you defeat the normal boss, that means you're probably gonna be all out of stamina. The Super Boss disappears after 30 minutes instead of an hour. You'll have to get them to spawn again and start over from 100% HP if you don't defeat them quickly enough. What is 100% HP for the Super Boss? Well, if the level 40 normal boss is around 30,000 HP, then surely the level 7 can't be that bad, right? Of course it can. Level 7 Goku Fubuki Hime, the second of the new lineup of Goku Yokai, had 298,000 HP, and so did everyone after her, and you had to beat level 7 Super Boss in order to add them to your team. Did I mention yet that Goku Yokai never ever came back after the event they were introduced in, and for every Goku Yokai you befriended, you earned a permanent stat boost for all of your Yokai's stats? This embedded a terrible fear of missing out into every Goku Yokai event, as anyone who failed to obtain them all would be unable to compete against those who didn't in Score Attack, and special one-time only Score Attack big bosses had become the new normal. These big bosses were extremely competitive due to a combination of their one-time only nature and the massive score bonuses you got for having the current rarest event yokai on your team. So players who wanted the big boss yokai were forced to crank in order to compete, mainly because the event big bosses tended to be pretty overpowered. Not all of them were, but it happened often enough to be pretty frustrating. So they've ruined the game's economy and introduced the most pay-to-win system in the entire game. What other terror could the Goku Yokai unleash upon the world? Well, not everything about them was terrible, I guess. All of them clearly had a ton of time and effort put into them, with awesome animations and voice clips, extremely cool character models and Soultimate animations, and those cool mini cutscenes you unlock for befriending them that explained a bit of their backstory. All in all, they had the most effort ever put into Puni Puni exclusive characters, so it's no surprise they'll be making an appearance in Yo-kai Watch 4 on Nintendo Switch and potentially the anime as well. Their mysterious leader, Rine, had yet to make an appearance in-game, but many people had already begun to predict something about him that would be, to me, the final straw. That's not until later though. Let's move on to the Crystal Yokai. A few months into the introduction of Goku Yokai, NHN decided they couldn't put that much effort into every event, so they invented the most blatant filler of all time, Crystal Legends. These reskins are equally lazy as they are flat out heinous looking versions of the existing Legend Yokai, with an ugly copy and pasted crystal texture applied to each legend with a different color slider setting in Photoshop. Slow down there, NHN, I think you might be underpaying your artists for the work they're doing. The first Crystal Yokai got off to a great start by being the first SSS rank Yokai to actually be put in the Gacha, revealing the new norm for the rarity of the best event Yokai, a mere 0.8%. To make matters worse, Crystal Legend Yokai brought with them a literal copy and pasted version of the Goku Yokai's Collectathon stat bonuses, forcing players to crank for the rarest of rare Yokai even if they didn't want them. Around this time, it became apparent that something I haven't mentioned yet would be returning once for each real-life season, the Nyambo Gacha. Nyambo Gacha coins could be bought for $6 a piece, or $60 for 11. Why so expensive? The Nyambo Gacha technically only contained S ranks and above, but at this point in the game, it might as well have been a normal gacha in terms of contents, because anything below SS rank was literally unusable against the strongest enemies of each event. What mattered for the Nyambo Gacha were two things, the SSS ranks and the guaranteed SS rank in every 10 crank batch you did. The main hook of the first Nyambo is that the Deva Enma were returning for the first time since their original events, and this would cement them as permanently Nyambo exclusive from then on. SSS ranks could be pulled at a mind-blowingly high 3% rate, but since there were 3 Deva Enma in there, it was a 1% chance at the one you wanted. There's also an 8% chance for SS ranks, and of course, the remaining 89% went to the S ranks. There were 35 SS ranks though, so good luck getting the one you wanted. Future Nyambo Gacha would feature the exclusive return of Goku and Crystal Legend Yokai, with the 3 special SSS rank guests of the season getting a 0.7% chance, and the 3 Deva Enma dividing the remaining 0.9% among themselves. Keep in mind this is a once per season, or 4 times a year gacha that requires real money for every crank, and a lot of it at that. You don't even know if the Crystal Legend or Goku Yokai you want will ever return to the Nyambo Gacha after their first time in there. Did someone say FOMO? Even if you didn't, you probably should. You wouldn't want to miss your chance. Rine debuted after the release of every Crystal Legend Yokai, and to absolutely no one, and I mean no one's surprise, Rine was yet another new rank, the Z rank. He broke the boundaries of what people thought a yokai could be by having the first ever 4-digit attack stat, and his ultimate was of unparalleled power because of it. What did it do? Well, you tapped Rine, did nothing for the next 5 seconds, and watched a big number appear on the screen. Exciting! NHN actually did something cool this event. Like the Deva Enma that came before him, Rine could only be obtained with gut, sweat, and moxie. No amount of money would get you the skill required to beat him in his insanely difficult battle, but he introduced a fun new gameplay system that allowed you to seal his power bit by bit as you defeated his Goku Yokai minions in the event. It was an all-in-all fantastic event, if and only if Rine was to be the only Z rank ever. He was hyped up for a solid year as being the most powerful yokai of all time, so surely no one would dare break the barrier. After all, introducing an even rarer rank of yokai above SSS ranks would exceed the limits of greed. Did I hear exceed the limit? Left jobless after being banned from World of Light's cutscenes, Cloud came crawling to Yo-kai Watch for a bit of love, and he got it. You could get limit broken Cloud Strife by fusing the free S-rank Cloud with Aerith's Ribbon. Jeez, that's sad. Oh, sorry Nintendo fans. I forgot Final Fantasy VII only released a few weeks ago. Thus, 0.5% rate Z ranks became the new norm, being added in almost every event, and NHN's greed continued to grow to this day. While the Z rank power creep is what convinced me to quit, their most recent antic is what definitively made me state I will never be coming back to the game unless something groundbreaking occurs. Recently, for the newest Nyambo Gacha, NHN added a brand new, Nyambo exclusive yokai that isn't just comically overpowered. He's also such blatant pandering. It's also legitimately disgusting when paired with him being the first ever yokai to literally require real money to be cranked. The Last Kirokoma, a fusion between Kirokoma and the Last Nyanmarai, two of the most popular yokai among specifically young child fans, was available for only 7 days at a 0.8% pull rate. It's absolutely shameless gambling bait to the youngest of fans. That means he's available at a rate of 1 in 125 cranks, by the way. And at $60 for every 11 cranks, we're looking at over $680 from Mommy's credit card in order to obtain the strongest yokai by far that may never even come back to the game. Oh, and in case you couldn't have guessed, his ultimate is nothing more than push button, receive damage. Last Girokoma is such an obvious, blatant, and shameless display of greed from NHN that I have no idea what's next for Puni Puni. Could Y points eventually be taken away and replaced with a hard limited currency like other gacha games? Could yet another, rarer rank be introduced? Could NHN begin adding more filler yokai to each rank to stealthily decrease the true chance of pulling event yokai without making a move that's obvious to the more oblivious players? I have no idea, but one thing's for sure. Whatever it is, I won't be playing it. Help us, Yo-kai Watch Metal Wars, because at this point, you're our only hope. Regarding the mobile game Yo-kai Kunitori Wars, the weekly leaderboards are entirely based on how much you play, and with a hard limit on stamina that can only be refilled by paying real money, it's been quite literally pay to win since day one. If you enjoy Yo-kai Watch Puni Puni, more power to you. But I certainly never will again. If you actually watch the entirety of this video, you're insane, first of all, and second of all, please let me know in the comments. I'm actually curious. I know a couple people that will, but outside of that, I'm wondering if a long video like this explaining the depths of a game's mechanics is something that more than 2 people are gonna actually be interested in. Don't forget to leave a like on your way out, and if you're watching at this point, you're already subscribed. Again, a sincere, heartfelt thanks to all of you that actually watched the entire video, and I hope that more videos like this will be coming soon. Not super soon, because this took me a long time. But, within the next 2 years soon? Yeah, sounds good.